Hi, this tutorial is around managing users on the Brightmetrics ShoreTel Reporting service. We'll look at setting up new users as well as deleting users. When you log in, if you have administrative privileges, you'll see a Users area in the sidebar menu. Once you're here, you can see and modify the users you've previously set up, and you can set up new users as well. First, we'll show you how to set up a new user. It's really easy. Enter the user's email address in the area provided. You can ignore the first two checkboxes. They're typically not used. If you want this user to be able to set up other users, select the ability to add or remove company users. For this demo, we don't want this user to be able to add or remove other users, so we're not going to check that. If you want them to be able to create or delete dashboards, select that option as appropriate. Again, for this demo, we're going to leave that off. And if you want this user to have access to existing dashboard tabs, click the drop-down arrow to assign those permissions. If you give somebody view permissions, they can see the dashboard when they log in, but they will not be able to modify it or share it with anyone else. Modify permissions allow them to view the tab as well as change it for everyone that has permissions on that tab. And finally, share permissions allow full control and the ability to share that tab with others in the company. One important thing to note is that if you give somebody modify or share permissions, they can edit the filters on a chart and make those filters less restrictive than you've made them when creating the chart. This would have the effect of allowing them to see more data than they could see when those filters were originally applied. If it is important that users only see data that they are specifically being given permission to see, you'll want to always restrict them to view permissions only. You would create their charts for them, and they would only be able to see the data for which you've given them permission. In this case, let's give the user view permissions on the System Summary tab and modify permissions on the Call Summary tab so that we can see the difference. Note that if you want to give somebody share permissions, you'll also have to give them create, delete, dashboard tabs permissions in order for them to share dashboards. Otherwise, it will be the same as modify permissions. When you click on Add User, a screen will pop up where you can enter the first and last name of the user and optionally their title in the company. Here they are in the list with the permissions that you've given them. When you clicked Add User, an email was generated and sent to that user. And here's that email with their username, their password, and a little information about the system and how they can find support on the system. If we now log out and log in as the new user, and you can see that I am logged in as the new user, we see the two tabs that we gave this user permission on. First, note that the user does not have Create, Delete tab permissions, so we don't see the Edit Dashboard area in the sidebar menu. If we first take a look at the Call Summary tab, on which we gave the user Modify permissions, we see that if we drill down into a chart, that we can do everything we want to on the pivot table, change its format, change filters. We can save the default layout and filters with this Save button. This saves the layout across all users with permissions on this chart. If we go into the System Summary tab, where the user has view-only privileges, we can still drill down into the data, and we can change the data in the pivot table and move it around in whatever format we like. But note the lack of a Save button. This user cannot save the layout of the pivot table. If there's a preferred layout for this data, someone that has modify or share access to this chart will have to configure that and save it for later. Now I'm going to log back in as administrator to show a couple more tips. First, if I want to share a chart with an existing user, there are two more places besides the user area that I can do that. If the tab is a pre-existing one, I can go to the Edit Dashboard area and then to the Tab drop-down and select Tab Permissions. From here, I can select any user that should have permission on this tab, as well as their appropriate level. And finally, as part of setting up a new tab, I can share it with existing users and add the appropriate permissions level as well. You can see our tutorial on creating dashboards for more information on this. Finally, let's take a look at how easy it is to delete a user. Go to the Users area on the sidebar menu, and from here you're simply going to uncheck all the checkboxes next to the user you want to delete and hit Save Changes. Note that the username is actually still there. This is just in case you've made a mistake and didn't mean to remove all those permissions. You can still add permissions level back and save changes, but if you refresh the page or go out of this page and come back in, that user is gone. Thanks for watching our tutorial on user management. If you have further questions, you can email us at support@brightmetrics.com or visit our website under the Support section to view more tutorials on Brightmetrics ShoreTel Reporting services.